In 476 AD, Germanic tribes deposed the last Western Roman emperor. Rome's traditional institutions collapsed, and the empire in the west was extinguished. Yet 1,000 miles to the east, the Roman state remained completely intact. Here, a prosperous administration was entering a period of wealth and stability that would carry it forward for another 1,000 years. This survival was the direct result of a strategic decision made over a century earlier. In 330 CE, Emperor Constantine recognized the Western territories were increasingly difficult to defend, so he relocated the capital eastward. By moving the center of gravity away from the vulnerable Italian peninsula, Constantine insulated his government from the invasions soon overrunning Europe, keeping the Roman Empire alive. As this map illustrates, he chose a location on the Bosporus Strait, a narrow waterway separating Europe and Asia. Whoever controlled this specific crossing controlled the major commercial and military traffic flowing between the two continents. This new Rome, which would become known as Constantinople, operated differently than its predecessor. The local population spoke Greek rather than Latin, and the city was designed from the beginning to be a Christian epicenter, replacing the pagan temples of the old capital with churches. Surrounded by water on three sides and fortified by massive defensive walls, this city was built specifically to protect the empire's richest eastern domains and withstand the barbarian incursions fracturing the west. By the 6th century, the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire reached a peak of political and military authority. This expansion occurred during the reign of Emperor Justinian. Justinian centralized power to an absolute degree. He positioned himself not only as the supreme political and military commander, but also as the highest religious authority over the Christian Church. To unify his expanding territories, he commissioned a massive legal overhaul. His scholars compiled centuries of contradictory Roman laws, regional decrees, and scattered edicts into a single systematized volume known as the Justinian Code. He paired this legal framework with the core political ideology of the politeia. This principle dictated that the emperor, while divinely appointed, was required to actively serve the public good through civil works and governance. While his armies did reclaim lost territory in Italy and North Africa, his systematized legal code provided the administrative stability that allowed the empire to govern those lands. That same code forms the basis of public international law today. Justinian fulfilled his obligation to the politeia through extensive public works. He commissioned bridges, massive public hospitals, and defensive forts, climaxing with a colossal new church in the capital, the Hagia Sophia. The architecture was intended to inspire psychological awe. For nearly 1,000 years, this massive central dome enclosed the largest interior space in the world, demonstrating an engineering capacity that no other contemporary civilization could match. This dominance extended to economic warfare. In 563 CE, Justinian dispatched a delegation of Orthodox monks on a covert mission to China to smuggle back living silkworm larvae hidden inside bamboo canes. Until this point, Persia controlled the land routes for the Eastern silk trade. By cultivating their own mulberry trees and silkworms in the Mediterranean, the Byzantines bypassed the Persian merchants entirely. Constantinople quickly became the luxury manufacturing center of the Western world. These intricate woven fragments show the quality of their domestic silk, which the emperors used as a high-value diplomatic gift to secure alliances with European royalty. Justinian's administration secured the empire's influence through a sophisticated integration of engineering, civil law, and state-monopolized trade. By the 11th century, the momentum of the previous eras had given way to internal crisis. Fierce competition between the imperial court and provincial governors for control of taxes and troops fractured the empire's administration just as new enemies closed in on the borders. At the same time, cultural ties to Western Europe collapsed. Decades of theological disagreements and political friction culminated in the Great Schism of 1054, permanently splitting the Christian world into the Roman Catholic West and the Orthodox East. Isolated from potential allies, the Byzantine military suffered a catastrophic defeat by the Seljuk Turks at the Battle of Manzikert in 1071. Following the battle, Turkish forces overran the Anatolian plateau. Anatolia was the agricultural heartland of the empire. Losing this territory meant the state lost its primary source of tax revenue and the native farmers that historically filled its army ranks. The emperors were forced to rely on expensive and often unreliable foreign mercenaries. By the 12th century, the Byzantine state was geographically cornered, stripped of its military manpower, and ideologically alienated from the Catholic powers of Europe. Desperate to reclaim their lost territory, the Byzantines negotiated with Western leaders for military aid. In 1204, a fleet of European Crusaders arrived outside the walls of Constantinople. The agreement rapidly deteriorated over financial disputes and deep-seated religious hostility. Instead of marching on to Jerusalem, the Crusaders turned their weapons against their Orthodox hosts, breaching the capital and subjecting it to a brutal sack. 9 centuries of accumulated Roman wealth was stripped bare. Treasuries were emptied, and relics, like the bronze horses now standing on St. Mark's Basilica in Venice, were shipped back to Western Europe as loot. Byzantine forces eventually managed to retake the ruined capital in 1261, but the destruction inflicted by their fellow Christians shattered the empire's economy and military infrastructure beyond repair. The weakened state held out for another 2 centuries, reduced to a fraction of its former size. Finally, on May 29, 1453, the Ottoman Turks breached the walls of Constantinople, officially bringing the Roman Empire to an end. As the city fell, surviving Greek scholars, bureaucrats, and elites fled westward, seeking refuge in the Italian city-states. They brought their personal libraries with them. These shipments included uncorrupted copies of ancient Greco-Roman philosophy, medicine, and scientific texts that had been largely lost to Western Europe for centuries. The sudden influx of this classical knowledge, combined with the arrival of scholars who could actually read and translate the ancient Greek, served as a direct catalyst for the Italian Renaissance. The Byzantine Empire functioned as a defensive barrier for 1,000 years, shielding a developing Europe while safeguarding the intellectual legacy of Greece and Rome. Its ultimate success lay in this preservation, keeping classical thought intact until it could be reintroduced to the West.